What's the most horrific act committed by someone you know personally? NSFW. My father beat the shit out of my mother and myself when I was a toddler. I have an uneven skull because of it. Until I found out, I thought it was a birth defect. I didn't find this out from my mother until I was an adult when I had to take him to court because he had opened numerous credit cards with my social security number when I was a kid and had tanked my credit by the time I was 18. What a ducking piece of shit. Pretty much sums him up fairly, I reckon. Murder, twice. 2 separate incidents. 1, killed a guy in a fight, not intentional. Goes in for 10, serves 8. 2, gets out. Another guy we knew gives him a hard time about how many times he sucked dick. Shot him in the face later that evening. Hess not getting out. Why would you walk up to a killer that just got released from prison and immediately start pushing his buttons? Obviously he didn't deserve to get murdered, but why the duck would anyone do that, lol? What are you gonna do? Shoot me? Guy that got shot. One of my childhood friends was diagnosed as schizophrenic in his early 20s, went off his meds for a bit of time and had an episode, bludgeoned his mom to death, who was my parents' friend. They found him in a fetal position crying and not understanding what happened. He committed suicide a few years later while in jail. That's so awful for everybody involved. Imagine your brain just suddenly turning on you and becoming your enemy. My uncle turned out to be a pedophile, assaulting his foster children often. The only reason he was caught and charged is because cousin managed to film him in the act and turn it in to the police. He got 8 years in prison only, and my cousin committed suicide a couple of years later. May he rest in peace. I lived down the road from Terry Joe Volner. He rode my bus every day, and was also a violent, horrible person. He murdered a 5-year-old because he had feelings for the kid's mom, and I guess she didn't feel the same. So he murdered one of her kids, took a picture of the child's body and sent it to the child's mom and told her he was going to kill her other kids that he was babysitting if she didn't come home right now. He got life. Then he beat his cellmate to death with his bare hands so brutally they considered the death penalty. He got life again. Edit, a word. You know it's going to be real bad when they use the person's full name. He was a horrible human being. He also had an extreme angry outburst when anyone called him Terry Joe because he said Terry was a girl name and he wanted to be called TJ. I called him that one time, when I was like 7 or 8. He punched me in the chest so hard I couldn't breathe. I like to think he's sitting in prison pissed off because he knows someone's out here speaking his full name. You almost died from dysentery. Guy I knew from Sioux Falls, SD was convicted of many counts of rape on a child. My kids had spent time w him, he was a family friend and they called him uncle. I had suspicions and cut off contact. Couple years later, he was arrested and convicted. He was only interested in boys, my son swears this dude didn't touch him. I hope he rots. What made you suspicious? He was just too eager to take the kids out, shopping, car rides, just trying to get them alone, but only the boys. My sister and I were both friends with him, so he was grooming her sons, as well. It's a long story, but he got caught with 3 neighborhood boys and was sentenced to literally hundreds of years. Not exaggerating. He shouldn't be tough to find on Google. Ada, I just checked, it was 325 years. A guy I worked with was shacked up with a manager and drugged her drink one night so she'd pass out. He molested and tortured her very young son to death. Edit, just wanted to add that yes, he is in prison. It happened in Asheville, Canton, NC about 11-12ish years ago. Guy's name is Will. Edit 2, reading through all the comments when I woke up I wanted to let y'all know that I was working at PetSmart, as were the above mentioned. When the news broke the next morning we were all granted time off if we needed it and they also provided us with counseling if we chose. I thought that story was going down one dark path, only to become far darker, bleaker than I could have predicted. Justified but. My grandmother was molested by a neighbor at a very young age. Her father murdered him and was never caught. A cousin had his 2 young children call their mom, they were divorced and it was his weekend with them, to say goodnight. He put them to bed and shot them dead before pulling the gun on himself. I used to work in a preschool and one of the dads did the same thing. He was in divorce proceedings from his much younger wife, and barricaded his doors before setting fire to his flat, killing himself and their 2 little girls. I hate the term extended suicide, the man was scum. I stupidly went and read some of the social media posts he wrote that night, And it was incredibly hate-filled and self-pitying in the worst possible way. I've never heard the term extended suicide, and I hope it doesn't catch on. It's murder-suicide. My mother attempted suicide in front of me. She called me downstairs to witness her take a bottle of pills and then told me it was my fault. I was 9. Mum survived, but I've never been able to let that go. She still believes she's fine and everyone else is the problem. I have compassion for her, but I can't have her in my life. I'm a 42-year-old mother and I can't fathom doing that. I'm blown away by all of the upvotes and responses. Each and every single one of you is an inspiration and I want all of the good in the world for each of you. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. My mother came home from 2 weeks in the hospital after a dramatic suicide attempt. She took a bottle of Valium. It wasn't nearly enough to kill her. It takes a lot of benzos kill you. And looked me right in the eye and said, "This is your fault, because you're a bad girl and I hate you." I was 12. You never forget a thing like that. I feel actual physical pain every time I think of her, which is less and less often now that she's dead. I'm as over it as I probably ever will be, but there really is no pain quite like the knowledge that your own mother doesn't even love you. Man, duck her. She didn't have the capacity to love. You could have been a perfect kid in every possible way that a parent imagines, and she'd still have said that. She sounds like she was filled with rage and hatred and it had nothing to do with you. She saw you as an extension of herself because that's what selfish parents do, and so when she said that, it wasn't you she was talking about but herself. Her words do not reflect you or who you are or how people are capable of feeling about you. Her words do not reflect you or who you are or how people are capable of feeling about you. Nope. And my amazing husband shows me every day how I deserve to be loved, and am. A guy I knew killed his father in front of his mother and younger brother trying to protect his mom from severe abuse. After he served his sentence, the family accepted him back and they've been living a normal life to this day. That started off really messed up but turned into something completely understandable. Glad they accepted him back. When we were in school, this boy from our year, we were 13 years old or so at the time, was with his 2 older brothers and kidnapped a man. The man was dating their sister, and at that time, people were very protective if you dated someone's sister. They took him to a petrol station, and covered him in petrol. They then took him to a forest and burned him alive. All 3 brothers went to prison, but since they were minors I don't think they got that many years. When I was 2122 I bump into the guy from my year in a takeaway. And he tells me he's working at the local supermarket. Few months later I end up working in that same supermarket. And he goes to me, "Anyone messes with you, let me know." I'm thinking, nah, I don't want them dead in a forest. How did the sister feel about all this? If my family did something like that I would never talk to them again. Imagine you're excited to get your first kiss, then find out the dude got burnt alive by your own kin, just for liking you? Disgusting. No one really knows the finer details except those who are close to the family, I guess. We only heard the story in school. Was she being abused? Was the guy much older? This is back in 2002 or something. There used to be many pedos dating schoolgirls. There are way more stories I know where elder men got beaten up for dating their much younger sister. There's a guy from my building who is skinny and so tiny. He found the 32-year-old man dating his sister on a bus and started beating the crap out of him in public. His sister ended up running away with the man and got pregnant. The man left her after she gave birth. My brother robbed a pizza guy. Twice. He called for a pizza in a park, and when the pizza man arrived he pulled a knife on him. High on Xanax, I assume he went to sleep, woke up thinking it was a dream and said, "Wow, that was a great idea, I better try it tonight." So he did the exact same thing and the pizza guy came, and hit him with a golf club. My brother absolutely deserved it. Pizza delivery guys are like holy saints of the modern world and shouldn't be touched or messed with. I'm sorry, but I'm just picturing some 17-year-old kid in an awkward uniform saying "not this time, ducker" as he swings his golf club.